The Kenya Revenue Authority, Caxton Musundi, who is the Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Tax Advisory at KRA. Thank you so much for making time for us here today.
Thank you for having us on this show.
Thank you. Let's begin with just an overview before we get to the questions from our viewers. Let's start with each of these new measures from KRA this year. Talk to us about the Digital Services Tax. What is it? How will it be applied? Who will it be applied to? And what was the premise of this?
I think let me start from the point that every year government is looking to ways that will help bring those who do not contribute to the development of this country to do so. And in this year, they have introduced basically two taxes that are aimed at reaching out to those that have not been making a contribution. Number two, it is important to appreciate that most Kenyans want to pay taxes, but they find themselves in situations where they are not able to understand the tax regimes that exist, and therefore simplification of taxes is very critical. And that's why minimum taxes, turnover taxes, and digital service tax is critical. Now, these two, the minimum tax and digital service tax, are trying to reach out to categories of Kenyans that have not been contributing to taxes. Minimum tax targets persons who are making perpetual losses, and they also target persons whose contribution to tax is less than 1% of their turnover. Now, being in this economy, trading in this economy, means that they are accessing government services, government infrastructure, without contributing to the provision of those services. So, at small token, was thought as important for this category of people to make a contribution. Likewise, digital service tax is trying to catch up with how business is done. As it is always said, business does not follow tax, tax follows business. So the design of business models is up to the taxpayers. And it is up to the government to define how to reach out to those categories of taxpayers so that they can make a positive contribution. Now, what has happened over a few years is that business has been going online. A lot of things you buy from online, you access videos online, and therefore the traditional way of transmitting this or providing these services is no longer as important as it used to be. And since this model is attracting a lot of taxpayers, it was then important that something is introduced so that they can also make a contribution.
Okay. And the voluntary tax disclosure program might also be some good news to a lot of people who might have had some issues with their taxes. So talk to us a little bit about that. I think we touched on it last week when we were taking a look at some of the things to look out for in the economy in the year 2021. But explain to us how this program will work.
First, I must say that if you have not paid your taxes, then you have to pay the tax and also pay the penalties and interest that such unpaid taxes attract. And sometimes the contributors or the taxpayers find this to be a heavy burden. Number two, considering that we have been through a very difficult time as a country in terms of COVID measures, we also find that the taxpayers are constrained. So the government thought it wise to allow these taxpayers who have not declared, made a full disclosure of their tax liability, to actually do so without paying the penalties and interest. So this is meant to assist Kenyans to come forward and settle their taxes without without a lot of penalties and interest being imposed.
So to be clear, they will pay their taxes, they just perhaps will be given a reprieve on the penalties and the interest, right?
Exactly.
And this runs over the next 3 years. Talk to us, I think I was seeing it on your website, but for perhaps some of my viewers who haven't had the chance to see it, that you get a higher reprieve the sooner you declare your taxes?
Yes. The principle is that the earlier you make a declaration and settle the taxes, the more relief you get.
Okay.
So for persons who will be making a full disclosure of their tax liabilities this year, and pay, if they settle the same taxes this year, which means they will get a relief of up to 100% of penalty and interest. And Yvonne, let me just tell you that sometimes the penalties and interest is quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
The law allows us to charge interest up to 100%. Not more than 100%. But if you have had your taxes unpaid for up to 5 years, means you are closer to 100%.
Wow, okay.
And if you assume somebody who has not paid 100 million, means they are getting a full waiver of another 100 million.
I see, I see. Okay. Let's get into our questions now. And we had indeed asked you, our viewers, to continue to send them in. And I'm seeing many of them that are coming in. Remember, our SMS number is 22422. And also on WhatsApp, if you want to send us a video, this is your moment. Received a few of them already. That number should be at the bottom of your screen, but it is 0742 961 341. Quickly on your phone, record something that's really short, 30 seconds, send it in, and we'll definitely put it up for that. And our first question from you, our viewers, is from a lady known as Linda Bonyo. Let's watch.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. My name is Linda Bonyo. I am the CEO at the Lawyers Hub, and I have 3 questions for you. The first question is on online education. What do you think would be the impact of the digital service tax on online education platforms, especially emanating from Kenya? Since the pandemic began, we have many parents who are now schooling their children online. Do you think employing digital tax on online education platforms would actually hamper access to universal basic education? And how do you intend to maybe offer incentives around online education? Secondly, I would want to ask a question on the big tech companies. What are your intentions and how do you see this implementation around big tech companies? Seeing that in France and in India, the big tech companies actually declined, causing the government in these countries to halt any provisions on digital tax. And 3, what do you think would be the impact of the Kenyan-USA free trade agreement that's currently ongoing? Because we know the big tech companies that we refer to in Kenya, mostly Amazon, Apple, Facebook, they're mostly American companies. Do you see your plans being halted?
All right. Would you like to begin?
Yes. First, I must say that treaties are made for the benefit of both countries that assent to it. And the negotiations with the USA on free trade, preferential trade arrangement is aimed at ensuring that Kenya gets their right share and makes, and therefore we expect that it is going to be a win-win situation. Number 2 is that big tech companies are the major providers of online services. In this country, if you had the Facebooks, and Google and so on, we are in engagement with these institutions, and the response we have gotten so far is positive. They want to make a contribution. What they have been asking us is the how. They will have to do it. And the how has been addressed. We have come up with digital service regulations that is going to help them register and make a contribution in this sector. We are confident that they will pay because we have not received any resistance from any of these institutions. What most companies would be calling for is fairness, an appropriate tax. Remember also that some of these companies were actually making a contribution in terms of taxes, although not all of them. Maybe just to end is that the taxation of digital companies, especially companies who offer services from the comfort of their countries away from where the services are being offered. And I think I want Kenyans to appreciate that if you look at institutions like Uber, they are not in Kenya.
Yeah.
If you look at Google, they are not in Kenya. But remember that the Kenyans enjoy services from these institutions, the Netflixes and so on. So we are confident that there is information and that the revenues they get from Kenya can be positively segregated and taxes be applied.
Let me just do a follow-up question to that, because you mentioned, the big tech companies who are earning revenues here but are paying taxes elsewhere. But for, the other smaller players, there's, a couple of people who have shops that they've put up on Facebook, on Instagram, and they're selling cakes and clothes and electronics and that sort of thing. For them, their argument, has been that they've been running away from the stringent, ways of doing business in the traditional manner, which is you have a shop, you pay goodwill, you have all of these things happening, and that they're just trying to eke out a living, and then, KRA comes on and is attempting to tax them for the work that they're doing in terms of running a business with as minimum costs as possible. What would you say to that?
First, I must say that Kenyans and indeed taxpayers in this economy are required to pay taxes, irrespective of how you do your business. But you are supposed to pay taxes following the law. So the law has categorized every taxpayer into various segments. There is a segmentation. If, for example, you are earning less than 70 million shillings in a year in terms of sales, then you are supposed to be under turnover tax, 50 million, sorry. And if you are over 5 million Kenya shillings, then you are supposed to be paying VAT. So persons earning below 5 million can still pay turnover tax, but up to 1 million.
Yeah.
So if you trade online, the rules don't change. The rules remain the same. And digital service tax, then for you, if you are selling through a platform, you're selling goods, then you don't pay digital service tax. The persons who pay digital service tax are those who offer services online. For example, a provider of digital services like a digital platform, a platform that other people use to sell their goods, charge for commission for those who sell the goods through their platforms. And therefore, they are supposed to pay digital service tax on the commissions that they get from the people who use the platforms. Likewise, people who stream services online are also supposed to be paying taxes, like Netflix, for example. They should pay digital service tax. So nothing really changes significantly, except this new way of doing business online, which attracts. But if you are selling goods online, then you should need to appreciate that your taxes remain the same.
Okay. So if their taxes were 5 million, I mean, if their earnings were 5 million, then they would be under TOT.
Yes.
And the classification.
And I think it's also important to appreciate something else. That if you are a Kenyan or a resident company in Kenya and you are doing you're providing digital services, remember that the digital service tax you pay is an advance tax. At the end of the accounting period, when you do your accounts and submit your return, if you have any taxes payable, then the digital service tax is deducted from that computed taxes.
Okay.
So it does not amount to double taxation, as some people have alluded to.
Okay. Linda had also asked about the impact of the digital service tax on online education.
Digital service tax is a very small amount. It's up 1.5% of the turnover. This was designed as such to be so close to turnover tax and also so close to minimum tax, so that still the person also makes a minimum, makes a contribution to the development of this country.
Okay. We continue to take in your questions. So here's a reminder about how you can send in your questions. You can find us on Twitter or on Facebook. The hashtag is BusinessNow. If you want to send us a text message, the number is 22422. If you want to send us a WhatsApp video, there is that number, 0742961341. Do not call that number. It is only enabled for WhatsApp videos. But keep them coming. We're really enjoying everything that's coming through. I'll also be going to Leonard Wanyama in just a moment. I will get to another video, but first let me get someone on Twitter now. The National Taxpayers Association has tweeted Caxton, and they're asking, do you think there was sufficient consultation with key stakeholders? For instance, the DST, that's the digital service tax, does not have a minimum threshold, and this may be a disadvantage to taxpayers.
I think first we have a two-stage process in making laws in Kenya. One is consultations done by the National Treasury, which is quite elaborate. All persons who may be affected by a new law are invited to make submissions. Number two is that we have Parliament. Every time Parliament makes a law, there is always room for consultations with critical stakeholders and even the general public. And we are satisfied that before these laws were, the process for making these laws was quite sufficient. Consultations were done in accordance with the Constitution and laid down laws. And I want to believe that that is okay, but in any event that implementation of the law brings challenges to any person, they still have the right to go to these institutions and petition them for review of the same. So I do not think that there is any problem with the way the law has been designed, including the lack of a minimum. Because in any case, there is no minimum for payment of taxes in this country.
Okay, all right. Let's get another video now. I believe it's Kiplimo Kigen who has sent in this question on video. Bwana Caxton, let's watch.
I am Kigen Kiplimo from the East African Tax and Governance Network. My first question is, what are digital services? Number 2, who is subject to this tax? Number 3, who will be appointed as digital service tax agent? Number 3, how does voluntary tax payment take place?
Kigan, thank you for that. I have them written down so we can follow up. And I think you'd started to explain this a little bit. So let's start with digital services.
Yes.
How do you define that?
How do you define a digital service? I will just give a very simple consideration. Number 1, it is an online platform. It is a platform that is used by other people to reach their customers. That will be a digital service. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is the service itself is being transmitted online. For example, if you are streaming and providing that service online, so somebody becomes a subscription, you subscribe, and then you are able to get those services. Those are services that are provided online. Remember that we used to buy these services from some shops, sometime, but now everything is going online. So that two categorization will define what digital service is. Mm-hmm.
And then the second one he asked was, who is subject to this tax?
Any person who offers digital services is subject to this tax. However, the law has provided for some exemptions. Mm-hmm. For example, if you are offering your services online and you are already subject to withholding taxes, which means you are contributing to taxes, you don't have a problem. I mean, nobody is going to ask you to pay. Right. Then we have news media. Mm-hmm. We have we have payments online. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the exemptions that have been provided, so that it doesn't create duplications.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Who will be appointed as digital service tax agents?
Digital services, what has been provided is they can either pay their taxes themselves. And I want to confirm to Kenyans that a lot of these institutions have come forward to register to pay taxes directly.
Yeah, you'd mentioned, I think in a previous report, about 1,000 individuals and institutions. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
There are over 1,000
that have registered for this digital service.
The registration is still ongoing.
Okay.
Because remember that the tax became effective from 1st of this month, and it is not due until any time next month, by the 20th of next month, and it will carry on until we have all these people on board. So the registration is still ongoing. A few people have already registered. They have come through the registration platform. And so the question is, so who registers? It is the people who provide these services online. Yes.
He'd also asked about the voluntary tax payment. You know, how does that take place? I know you'd explained it in the beginning. So let's assume there's some, I want to make some tax disclosures for that period between, is it June 2015 to June 2020? What do I do? Do I come to Times Tower, I go online, what do I say? What, you know, tell us how that works.
First, I want to say that if you go to the KRA website, there are guidelines that have been uploaded to help every Kenyan to appreciate how to go about making a declaration, what it means and what is required. Yes, if you wish to make a voluntary tax disclosure, you can get in touch with your tax service office, because every taxpayer belongs to a specific tax office. They can go there, they can make an application, submit a return that clearly indicates the tax liability they wish to make a declaration on.
And the year.
Yes, and the year. You have to indicate the type of tax.
Right.
You have to indicate the period, and then you have to indicate the amount. Now, it is based on a full and correct disclosure. When that is accepted, you'll be given a go-ahead to make a payment. If you want to settle it in full, it's allowed. If you find it difficult to settle the amount in full, you can ask for a payment plan. Which is usually a convenient way of settling taxes that is supported by your cash flow. And in that case, then, what happens is that when it is approved, you can settle your taxes. But remember that it is always good to settle before the end of the year, before 2021 ends, so that you can get 100% waiver of penalties and interest.
All right, okay. Thank you for that. We're here with Caxton Musundi, who's the Deputy Commissioner for Policy and Tax Advisory at the Kenya Revenue Authority. He's answering all of your questions regarding minimum tax, digital service tax, and is also telling us about the voluntary tax disclosure program and how that works. Keep your comments and your tweets coming in, your questions specifically that you have to him. We have another 15 to 20 minutes with him, hopefully 22 minutes, I'm informed, exactly. So please keep them coming in. We're on SMS, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and you can send us your WhatsApp videos as well. I think we have a few more videos and lots more of your texts and your tweets. We'll get into that right after the break. You're watching Business Now. We'll be right back.